A show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Hello and welcome to another edition of The Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Wolden. We got a great show for you. It's jam-packed full of hockey stuff. Of course, talking about the draft, it's a given. The Oilers picking up McDavid. Speaking of our number one overall pick, Andrew Brethauer, how are you doing, man?
Doing great. Yourself?
Not too bad. Glad to have you here. Of course, on the eve of Canada Day, everyone's excited. So some big news. I know you're a Penguins fan. What do you think of what your team did?
We didn't do anything. We didn't even draft. I don't know. It's depressing not drafting day one, but we'll get through it.
There you go. We'll see what happens in free agency. That happens, by the way, tomorrow. We also have another guy who's been picked. Obviously, a first rounder for a very important team, the Edmonton Oil Kings. Andrew Kep, you're from the area as well. Glad to have you here, and pleased to drop some knowledge with us and your opinion here.
Yeah, I'd have to go with Islanders stealing Barzal late. I think they had the best pick of the draft, just with that steal.
You're going to have to hold that up for a second. You're getting ahead of me, my friend. See, he knows what to do because he's been in the game for long. And I guess we'll start off with that, and we'll get to that in a second. I wanted to talk about the draft winners and losers. Of course, knowing your first-round picks are going to be easy. You look at some of the trades that were also made in the draft prior to. It's been pretty darn good if you're, outside of the Boston Bruins, that is. But with trades added in and outside, of course, McDavid and Jack Eichel, who were the unanimous 1-2s, were there any steals or great winners in this year's draft? And I guess you kind of give us a little bit of a tidbit and explain a little bit more about the Islanders and why you say they had the best draft.
Just how high Barzal was ranked to go. I mean, going that late, I think that's a steal from the Islanders. He's very offensive, and you always have to have a little bit more fan basis for the WHL guys just because I get to see him live. So seeing guys like him and Provorov go later than maybe I thought they should have at least. I think those guys are steals.
And you also consider Islanders didn't have a first-round pick, and now they have two by just trading away. So that's a great draft for them. Winners, also Calgary. Got to give it to them for getting Dougie Hamilton and just shoring up that blue line, which is what they needed to do. We're going to love the Oilers, but I'm going to say Calgary made probably the biggest move. They actually had to make a move rather than actually just getting a freebie McDavid.
I may have dropped in terms of who might be the biggest loser in the draft when I hinted at the Boston Bruins. But can you guys tell me and explain? I know I got both Andrews here, so we'll go Andrew Kep. Explain, would you agree that maybe the Bruins were the biggest losers, or was there another team that you felt that could have done a lot better?
They had 3 picks in a row, so, you can't really screw it up too bad. And, I mean, they're pretty smart hockey people, so I think taking Nebraska was a good pick. He's got a lot of potential. His dad played in the NHL, and he's a big kid. He's going to be strong. He's power forward. And I think they just drafted him for his potential, mainly not as much his numbers now, but I think they did all right. Maybe not what everyone else seen, but they must see something in him, and that's perfectly fine.
I think it's just everything they did, like trading Lucic as well, trading Hamilton, and really not getting a crazy amount back. Their first-round picks were not even that great. They left a lot of great players on the board. You mentioned Barzal. I don't know who else could had a more bad day than Boston did, especially when you have 3 picks in a row and they should be just guaranteed, or trade them and have your rebuild even better in this strong year. So I don't know, Boston. I don't know what they're doing. I don't even know why they're having a rebuild. It's a 1 year off from them making playoffs and all that. Like, why are we having a rebuild in Boston?
Well, they just made themselves even a lot older in the roster by giving up some of the young players. So it should be interesting to see what happens with the Bruins. Maybe they pick up a few free agents. Who knows? Maybe they're trying to do something towards that. I want to talk about a guy who could have been a UFA, but instead signed a pretty darn good contract, earning a little over $4 million per season. I'm talking about Devan Dubnyk, and you look at where his contract is. Does this benefit the Minnesota Wild, even though he's only been decent for, you'd say, maybe 8-9 months? Starting in Phoenix and then with Minnesota, or do you think Devan Dubnyk really got the steal out of this whole deal?
I think the Wild got the steal. I mean, he was a goaltender in Edmonton and Phoenix, and we haven't really seen any goalies put good numbers for a long period of time in either of those places. And when given the opportunity with Minnesota, he proved himself and led him to, a fairly decent end of the season, and I think that's all they really asked of him.
I'm still iffy about giving a goalie had a good couple months, a 6-year deal. And he had Vezina numbers, he had great numbers. I don't know if you can give him $4 million for 6 years for just doing 4 months worth of work. I think you have to do a lot more long term. So I think in any case that might have been best for like maybe a bridge deal, 2 years at most. But I'd say
you look at what Antoniemi got when he got shipped to Dallas, and goalies right now are at a premium.
Mm-hmm. I
think that's a benefit. The Oilers, of course, picking up Cam Talbot, a young guy who's shown spurts of being a really good goalie, especially when Henrik Lundqvist was down. So, you know he's going to eventually make some big money. And then you look at what I mentioned with Niemi. Don't you think Dubnyk was at least in that spectrum?
I'd say he's in that spectrum, but it's still a lot of money to throw out for a guy who, up until that point, really wasn't that kind of goalie. So what happens next year if he goes back and beats the Edmonton Oilers or the Coyotes Dubnyk that we're used to? Is he now worth it? Who wins that now? Well, Dubnyk wins that because he just made a lot of money for 4 months of work. So I just have a problem of giving a lot of people money for a very limited amount of time.
Well, tell that to the Kings GM, Dean Lombardi, who wasn't pleased, had a word commitment from Mike Richards that, you know what, you're going to come back, we're going to commit to you if you could promise this. Things kind of fizzled. The guy had poor numbers, was released, and now the Kings are looking to take a hit. But if you look at Dean Lombardi and what he mentioned, he felt like he got burnt. He felt that he could give Mike Richards the opportunity to become productive or become a part of the Kings, and felt like he was left by the wayside, betrayed in a way. What do you kind of make of these comments? Is there a sense of loyalty, or should there be a sense of loyalty in hockey, even though you don't have it on pen to paper? You give a guy a word. Is that how it is in hockey, or do you just think that, you know what, it's a business?
No, I think that's exactly how it should be. But when you start talking in like $6 million and stuff to those guys, do they really have to look up to their GMs and stuff when they're making more money? Like, it's a really touchy subject. But if Richards wants to play in the NHL and he plays it for the love of the game, then that word that he had should be more important than his paycheck and just going and doing his own thing, blowing everything off.
Yeah, this is going to hurt the Kings too. They're going to take a penalty out of it.
They're taking a lot of penalty, like it's 1.8 or 1.6 million for the next couple of years, and they get hit with 3 or 4 million in cap. So that's like, it's now over. Rather than dealing with it for the next couple of years, it's going to be dealing with it for about a decade and more of cap problems. And hopefully cap goes up, but that's going to be a hurt for them. Like, I think you got to take a guy at his word, but especially with that contract, if ever you got a free buyout, you buy out a contract that has so much time left on it. That's a no-brainer.
All right, guys, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we're going to talk about the Hall of Fame class of 2015 that just recently was announced, as well as possible expansion in the National Hockey League, and maybe Las Vegas might be the opportunity for the NHL to go. We'll tell you more coming up.